Good. Hanging in there. I have to give you this invite.
Great. All right. Okay, well, good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of April 14th, 2016 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent hearings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available online at www.glendaleca.gov. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and Design Review Board appeals is also available at the table by the front door. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. Board Member Benlian?
Here.
Board Member Charchin?
Here.
Board Member Malikian is absent this evening. Board Member Mardian?
Here.
And Chairman Simonian?
Yes, here.
Present. Oral communication or report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on April 6, 2016. Next item on the agenda is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not on the agenda. I have no oral communication cards and have been submitted.
Neither do I.
Which brings us to staff announcements. There is just one brief staff announcement to do with actual item on tonight's agenda, and that would be the first case for 401 through 40549, that is, on Hawthorne Street. There is a continuance for this project in order to have the applicant prepare the correct historical assessment. So the continuance is being requested until June the 9th. So this would be the first meeting in June for the Design Review Board. We would need to have an actual motion and a second and a roll call in order to continue that.
I'll
make a motion to continue the matter.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Board Member Mardian and a second by Board Member Charchian. In terms of roll call, Board Member Charchian?
Yes.
Board Member Benlian?
Yes.
Board Member Malikian is absent. Board Member Mardian?
Yes.
And Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
Okay. So again, this would be case number PDR 16034964401 through 409 West Hawthorne to be continued to June 9th, 2016. Which leads us to the next item on tonight's agenda, or I would turn the meeting over to Chairman Simonian, but I believe you'll be turning it back over
That's
to me.
That's right, right back at you. And so we'll start off with our case at PDR 1603498, I should say. And Ms. Zimataitis, you are the case planner, so please proceed and introduce the project to us.
Thank you, Chairman, board members. The case before you is for a project to be located at 1001 East Colorado Street, although the buildings to be demolished range from 919 through 1101 East Colorado. The proposal consists of demolishing the existing commercial buildings, which in this case is the World's Gym, and constructing a new 4-story, 134-room hotel on a 37,500 square foot lot zoned C3 Commercial Services Height District 1. This particular project received an approval of a standard variance to allow a 4-story building within a 50-foot building height envelope in the C3 zone. So this variance was approved back in February, on February 11th, 2016 of this year, whereas the planning hearing officer found they were able to make all the required findings in order to approve what would essentially be limited to a 3-story building in a 50-foot height district, And in this case, they were allowed a 4-story building in a 50-foot height limit. So that variance has been approved. There was also an analysis done in terms of environmental review, in which case there was a final mitigated negative declaration that was approved by the planning hearing officer as well. The initial study was circulated for the required 20-day review period back in December 31st of last year through January 20th of this year. The final mitigated negative declaration was adopted by the planning hearing officer in conjunction with the variance approval, though this final mitigated negative declaration is part of your staff report this evening and is submitted for your consideration along with your decision. Which brings us finally to the 3 points in the staff report, or I should say the 3 topics. The first being the site plan. What you have essentially is a mid-block project site. It has 300 linear feet of frontage along the north side of Colorado between Cedar Street and Adams. The existing parcel features the Gold's Gym on the westerly side of the parcel and a surface parking lot for the World's Gym on the easterly side. They are essentially going to obviously be clearing the entire lot and constructing the hotel from east to west across the 300 linear foot of frontage. The building itself is placed towards the front of the street, and that's in compliance with the design guidelines so that the commercial project would be brought up to the pedestrian-oriented sidewalk. And the building also features the required 50-foot setback along the rear. So there is a substantial buffer from the multifamily residential projects that are to the north on Orange Grove. All of the parcels along Colorado, both on the east and west, are also zoned C3 Height District 1, which would essentially allow up to 50-foot, in this case, 3-story commercial buildings on either side of the project site. Because there is a bulb out on the sidewalk level, which brings the public sidewalk down to 6.5 feet at one location, there is a requirement that they provide a 10-foot public right-of-way. So the project site is providing a public access easement and setting the building back an additional 5 to around 6 feet from the front property line. That setback is then landscaped. So there is additional landscaping on the front, not only to soften the building itself, but also to provide a little bit of buffer because there are hotel rooms provided on that ground floor. There is also additional landscaping as required by code all along the north property line, adjacent to the residential zone. So there they provide a 5-foot landscape buffer with the required trees, 20 feet on center, as well as a 5.5 foot high masonry, decorative masonry that is block wall along the residential portions. Last but not least, in terms of parking, they are providing the code required parking of 134 parking spaces, which is basically 1 space per hotel room in compliance with our zoning code. They are providing some parking at the surface or on the ground level behind the building, which is screened from Colorado, which is in compliance with our urban design guidelines. And then the remaining portion of the parking is provided within essentially 1 3/4 level of parking, subterranean parking underneath the building. The parking is accessed off a 2-way driveway that's on the far east side of the building. So the second topic of consideration in your staff report was the mass and scale. As I previously noted, the building itself, it's 50 feet tall, 4 stories in height, essentially spanning across the 300 linear foot project site. The public right-of-way. This particular property, though it's very long, it is located on one of the city's major east-west thoroughfare. Colorado has an 80-foot public right-of-way at this location. So based on its location on one of the primary major thoroughfares in the city, the mass and scale is somewhat compatible in its particular context. Both, again, as noted, the east and west side of Colorado all can be built up to 50-foot height buildings in the C3 Height District 1 zone. And Orange Grove Boulevard, which is directly to the north, is zoned R2250, which is a medium-density residential zone. Currently, there are 1, 2, and 3-story buildings directly to the north. Because there is a substantial buffer between the residential developments to the north and that 50-foot setback to the building, there is somewhat adequate spacing and buffering, again, from the residential to the north. Mentioned also the variance. In dealing with the mass and scale, the mass and scale is also somewhat softened by the architectural style and design of the actual building itself. There are basically 3 layers on the building facade. The first layer is I'm going to go into this in terms of the design and detailing a little bit as well. But again, the 3 layers of modulation is basically the primary stucco building wall. Then you have a projecting series of aluminum-clad metal frames that come out from the stucco layer. And then you have recessed rectangles clad in composite wood panels. Mr. Simonian, I believe you have the color material board in front of you, so you can take a look at the various materials themselves. So there's a layering effect on the front facade that helps break up the building in terms of the textural articulation. The building is also sort of somewhat divided in the center by the front entryway. The front entryway is actually a two-story aluminum-clad storefront window system, so that you have this element somewhat in the center that breaks up the building both on the east side and on the west side. And so I'm going to just quickly go up to, if you don't mind. These are the elements that we were just referring to. So in terms of the mass and scale, this front entryway would be the 2-story front entry that's sort of offset with aluminum-clad canopy that's rising above it. You have a column sort of that's somewhat more of an architectural feature as opposed to an actual structural feature, though it does have structural support for the floating frame above. Then you have essentially the easterly side of the building plus the westerly side. Also, just to note, and before I continue on, when you take a look at the ground floor, as you'll notice, you do have hotel rooms along the front on Colorado. There is the front entryway with the drop-off at the rear. So essentially you would be coming in two-way driveway. There's a drop-off area, the surface parking. You have an additional pool at the rear, so there are amenities on site for the individuals to use, as well as a gym, a fitness gym at the corner adjacent to the pool, and then common conference areas as well as a breakfast area at the center towards the lobby. Now going back to the design and detailing conversation and discussion in the staff report, again, this is the front entryway where the lobby where you have more of a focal point towards the building. And then you have those multiple layers and materials that sort of soften the front very elongated front facade. The 2 interior elevations facing east and west are actually built up to the property line. So by building code, they're not allowed to have any openings at the property line. In response to staff's recommendation, the architect has come back and designed actual light wells so that the building is then recessed at the end. So since you have a double loaded corridor, not only now that you have a little bit of articulation on the ends of the building, but then you also provide natural light on the double-loaded corridor. The rear obviously resembles the front of the facade. This would essentially be the actual elevation that faces the neighbors to the north on Orange Grove. It still has the system of frames set within frames of varying depths that protrude and recess with rectangular elements offset in the plane. As mentioned, again, the materials as shown on the board, it's a combination of stucco, aluminum frames. They have those the wood foam metal panels, and an aluminum frame curtain wall system and aluminum windows for all the hotel. The driveway, as required by code, will be a decorative driveway. It'll be a mixed gray pebble aggregate concrete. And the roof forms, again, because of the height of the overall building, it's just a flat roof form that is, again, ties in with the very clean line contemporary finish of the architectural style. Go back. Okay, based on the analysis provided in the staff report and just briefly summarized in the presentation, staff ultimately recommends approval of the proposed hotel project with a few conditions. One is to provide details for staff review of cladding at junctions where materials intersect. And the second one would be to provide a lighting plan and cut sheet details for staff review prior to submittal for plan check. That concludes staff's presentation. I know the project team is in the audience. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I have a few questions, Mr. Chair, if I may. On your staff report, you said we have to have a 50-foot setback at the rear, but I'm looking at sheet A-1.1. I see 47 feet on one side, 47.10, and 49.11.5. And you also mentioned in your presentation 5-foot setback along the rear, the landscaping. Mm-hmm. But then I see 310, then it goes up to 5.1. So how
where
does
the trees are, correct.
Right. So by the time, is this a race planner?
No, I believe, and I'm going to look to the architect. It is a raised planter, yes. I know the story poles.
The other thing is the setback issue back. How does that relate to what I'm seeing on the dimensions? You said it's minimum 50 feet.
Yeah, it's 49,
and I apologize. It's 49, 11 and a half, so approximately 50 feet.
It's not a perfectly rectangular lot if these numbers are accurate, so it looks like it is short, and we may have to. There's room, I think, to push the building toward the street a little.
Well, actually, they are required by code to provide for every one for every 1 foot of building height. They were required to provide. I don't want to misspeak code, so I'm going to actually bring it up.
Maybe that's why the building height is 48 feet, according to the section. I don't know.
Already says.
No, it's not. It's 50, almost 50 feet.
And if you don't mind giving me just
2
minutes,
answer that later.
Unless you'd like to go ahead and allow the applicant time to speak, in which case I'd be more than happy to look it up in the code sections as well. So.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for staff besides Mr. Martin's question?
That's actually more of a clarification. The pool deck, is that on grade with the surface parking, or is that raised?
Might be more of an architect question.
It should be on the first floor plan.
It's on the first floor plan, but there's no cross-section through the actual pool plan.
Actually, that cross-section where it shows the driveway shows there's a difference in elevation.
I believe it's at grade because it's on the same level as the fitness room, and there's a corridor that leads to the fitness room and a door out to the pool area. Is it on grade?
It's section B. If you look at that dash line with the floor line, I'm assuming it lines up with the finished floor, so there's a change of elevation there. Maybe we,
clarify that with the architect.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for staff? Okay. So with that, I'll go ahead and start the hearing, Ms. Zematitis, and when you're ready, you could just chime in and let us know that.
If you're welcome to wait just 1 second, or you're welcome to continue on with the.
We'll wait.
Oh, you'll wait? You sure? Okay. It's up to you, because I have the answers if you'd like, so.
How long will it take for you to get the answers?
I have the answers currently.
You
Yes,
do?
I
Oh,
do.
then let's go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, and again, this is for the commercial district, C3, height district 1. The maximum building height envelope is 50 feet and 3 stories max, again, which was a variance for 50 feet, 4 stories. The required setback along the rear adjacent to a residential zone is 1 foot minimum for every 2 feet of height for the entire building. So if the building is 48 feet in overall height, they would be required to provide a 24-foot setback. In this case, they've provided, approximately a 50-foot. In this case, on one side would be 49 and 11 and a half. So I apologize, I misspoke. They're not required to provide a 50-foot setback, but they are required to provide at least a minimum. If it's a 48 or if it's a 50-foot tall building,
Half the height, yeah,
then they
okay.
would need a 25-foot setback. In this case, they're providing approximately a 50-foot, double what's required by code.
They're
Correct.
doubling the required setback from
Correct.
the residential zone to the north.
Yes, and in regards to the landscaping buffer at the rear, when landscaping is adjacent to a residential zone in a commercial zone adjacent to a residential zone on one side, trees are required to be provided 20 feet on center. And those, again, would be a minimum within a 5-foot, the tree well itself. And there is no requirement in terms of the actual width of the landscaping, just that landscaping be provided, although there is a requirement to provide a 5.5-foot decorative masonry block wall between the two properties to buffer and adequately screen the commercial development from the residential projects.
Then if I may follow up with another question, Mr. Chair. When we have the surface parking, where's the landscaping for that?
It would have to have a minimum 5% landscaping, so I believe that they are providing that minimum 5% landscaping within that landscaping buffer.
So those small islands that I see in the side plans, yeah.
And
Plus the landscape buffer.
plus, well, they also have the landscape buffer at the front, but they are providing, and if you take a look on sheet A 1.1, that particular diagram, and I believe it's actually posted at the top one. The landscape, they are providing the required landscaping for that parking, surface parking.
Okay, as long as we can.
No, it's provided for.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and open the public portion of the hearing. Mr. Alajajian, do you want to start us off? Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, my name is Aram Alajajian. The address is 320 Arden, Suite 120, City of Glendale, California. We're the project architects for the proposed project. Let me tell you from the beginning, this is one of the most exciting flagships that the city could entertain, having in Glendale. Holiday Inn Suites belongs to Intercontinental Hotel Group, which is one of the largest hotel groups in the world, competing with Marriott and the Hilton at the same time. So from the outset of the project, I think the Intercontinental Group and their representatives were very excited to have this project located in Glendale, and they're looking forward for the fast completion of it. Now, going back to the project, the proposal is a 4-story hotel in front of you, which has really done a great job here. You know, actually, you did my job, basically. describe the entire project architecturally as well. So it is 50 feet the maximum height limit, that we're not exceeding that height. Also, 134 rooms are stretched from the one eastern property line to the west side of the property line. So the first floor, if I may approach the board so I can basically tell you about the accommodations that we have. What the proposal has is the ground level, I mean the street level of the hotel will have the main entry lobby right from the Colorado, and traffic would be basically coming in from the Colorado, making either a right turn into the property. So that driveway goes under the building itself. If you look at that south facade, south elevation, so with a decorative paved driveway, the cars would be with a double lane entering into the back of the property, which would be accommodating all the all the reservation parking, or a guest parking itself. And we have a drop-off, again, a decorative drop-off area right behind the lobby. So this lobby, and on both sides, the entry side and the back side where the drop-off area happens, it's all glazed. Technically, you can see through from Colorado all the way to the drop-off or a porte-cochere area. And the entries from both sides of that or from the center brings you to the reception desk, and the offices from the back. So this entry element is a double height. Where you're looking at the front elevation, on the south elevation, you can see the double height elevation there. It's all glazed. So from the second floor, which is up above, it could be viewed to the lobby, entry lobby, which the guest would be congregating, and also you could see the Colorado from the part of the corridor, second floor corridor. So double elevators that are running all the way from the basement to the first and second floor would be operated by the key card. So if you're checking in to the hotel, they'll give you the key card for your room. That will also be operating your elevators to the basement garage where your vehicle is parked. So we are complying with the parking requirement, as Vilya has stated. Basically, the room mix as it is as required by Holiday Inn Suites. So it will have typical suites. It's an all-suite hotel. So it will basically, these hotels are targeted to service the business people and the families. The visitors would be having a choice, either the double suite hotel with a double room, or larger suite hotels, or a standard suites, which are the typical ones up here. And by using this ratio, we try to create a facade which is as playful as what the elements would be. So, as Ilya was explaining, we have the main core, which is the building surface itself, the wider area that you can see. So, because of the long facade, we kind of try to fragment this thing into two pieces. If you have this thing all the way continuous, that probably would look boring. But the center portion where the entrance is, we're breaking that elements into major fragments, the right side and the left side. So midsection, which is the main lobby and the entry and the rooms above, would be identified by the glass element with the clear glass that you can see the lobby and a bridge on the second floor. And the upper rooms are basically the spandrel glass and housing the windows of the fourth floor rooms that we're overlooking. So the difference between those surfaces, anywhere 2 to 4 feet. So then we have those protruding elements that are framed with the composite metal. They're basically coming out of those main forms. And then we have the third surface, which is way back from this, which is the recessed, and would be composite wood elements, this color that you can see, sort of close to the orange color that you have the sample over there, where it would be recessed back. So we do have this playful element in here that creates variety of the surfaces that play to each other and create those fragments that are very playful with each other. At the same time, to identify the entrance to make it very special, the column that you see, it's a round column about 2.5 feet diameter, the metal clad. It's basically symbolizing the entrance itself. So it's creating the off-balance sort of thing. It's not non-symmetrical, but it creates the sort of a symmetrical balance. If you look at those fragments and that this midsection is sitting on that column, that identifies the entrance. Now the signage will go on the building, which is Holiday Inn Suite sign at the location on the top, and we will have it here on the rear side location. Now also we pull the windows back here just to create additional space for light and ventilation. Basically, this is the materials are cement, plaster, and composite materials like metal and composite wood material. Those are the materials, 3 different materials used on the project, and also curtain walls being used in this one. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer you.
Mr. Judge, I have a question.
Sure.
There was no room to manipulate this roof and play around with the roof a little bit. I know you have
Up and down?
up and down a little bit
Yeah.
to
Thank
break
you.
that monotony. Now, I know you have height restrictions, but it would have helped. I mean, I like the cohesiveness of the
Yeah.
design.
Well, first of all, we're looking at a project which is a hotel. And because it's a hotel, it gives us an ability to create 4 levels within the 50 feet height.
Got that.
Because of the 10-foot floor-to-floor height, and also, the first level, which is slightly higher than this. So there's not much of a break you can create within the roof. And those typical room layouts is normally, it is what it is. You don't, there's not much of a room to play around. And besides us being the architects of the hotel, I mean, this goes on with a number of reviews with the hotel committees and the hotel staff too. I mean, they have their own architectural team which reviews this and comes out with their recommendation as far as the uses and the functions are concerned. So, taking it down meaning losing the floor.
Well,
So-
not down, I mean, maybe a couple of feet or something.
Pushing it up, we're kind of going over the height limit. So that's what triggered this. Besides, I think, the stretched forms by itself, it does constitutes the minimalism and in a sense of the continuation of the streetscape. So
I do agree, I mean, I've
I-
seen similar
right
concepts there.
and with keeping the line continuously straight, kind of parallel to the street, the playful elements are this.
Got it. Yeah, that I-
Those forms are, we're playing with that by maintaining the parapet at the same level, so that the fragments and forms are doing the ups and downs and playfulness versus,
May I ask a couple of questions, but I might need the pointer, Mr.
Sure.
Judge. So, the Colorado facade, these units are right on the sidewalk. How is the landscaping working in front of these
okay.
units?
Well, as Vilya has mentioned, we have a 5-foot setback, almost we push it back 5 foot. And also, those units, we use the shorter unit numbers that they're not extended long units to create additional 3 to 4. So there's about 8 to 9 feet of a room that could be landscaped properly. And then due to the slope of the floor, entry level, all this just to answer the early question, this is all in one level. The swimming pool back here and fitness room, the corridors, the lobby, entry, they're all in a one level. Due to the slope of the property, there's a drop about 2.5 to 3 feet. So the floor level stays above the Colorado level, about 3 feet. So that gives an extra privacy there.
And so, is that okay, so, if I may.
Sure.
Is this first 5 feet the same grade as the sidewalk?
No, actually, as you can see in the rendering, we are creating the planter boxes in front of it.
Got it.
So it's raised about two and a half.
So this entire area gets a raised
yeah.
planter,
Right.
and then the floor itself is, of course, level, and sidewalk is sloping, and then the planter at this end, I assume, is going to be higher than the planter on the other
3 feet
side.
or so, yeah.
Okay. And so you're showing this column over here, this 2-foot diameter. How does that work into this area? Where is that column?
It's right here.
I
It's within the
see.
setback here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wasn't able to.
It's-
So that's the column, and then
Right.
you have 1, 2, and
Those
those are them, and then you got,
Yeah, you got one more over there.
this is supposed to be the same level as this, same,
Right, so that should be somewhat popped out here, probably. This is missing, you know.
I see.
Yeah.
And then you have this piece.
Yeah, that would be the one is
Okay.
over here, which is the same proportion as the staircase in the
Got
back
it.
here.
So when that goes in, then what we're talking about is all the stucco is really that 5-foot
surface.
setback.
Yeah,
And then you
that
have
surface,
the storefront spandrel, and that's setback.
which is way back, yeah.
And then-
About, see, 4.5 feet?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, 4.5 feet setback. So that is also the same setback as all the windows glazing in the back.
And then and then on your
That
elevations,
is about 2 feet.
2 feet. Okay, and then in your elevations, you're calling it a tile that has a wood grain to it, and then in your material board,
No,
you're
it would
saying
be
it's the composite?
composite, yeah.
Okay, so it's not the ceramic porcelain wood color tile.
No, it's a composite material.
And that pops out 2 feet from this.
Correct.
And then you have this aluminum portion that projects past the stucco itself.
Right. It's this
Okay.
one here. Yeah. They
And-
project out about a foot out of the
So,
stucco
so when we're
surface.
talking about the parapet height, this over here is basically.
Right.
And so as Mr. Mardian was pointing out, to create some undulation on the facade, you have over here this window, this spandrel glass that's
Mm-hmm.
in line with the parapet. What was preventing you from pulling down this spandrel glass to, below or, and then putting some sort of a safety glass behind it, which would not be visible from the street, to kind of create some undulation on the roof?
Well, we thought that this is a lot cleaner design in a sense because this, I'm sorry, basically this, the glass facade line continues all the way through. By dropping or, pushing back and creating another rail or another layer there, I think we would be deviating from the concept itself because for myself was two dominant elements that we have are those two. And then we have these playful forms that are protruding in and out from those forms.
What is that
Those are
aluminum? What
this
is
one?
that material on top of the glass above the entry at the?
This?
Yes.
This one or this one? This one here.
That's right, the top.
This is spandrel glass. It's glass element, just like those. This is also
All
spandrel.
the way to the parapet line.
Right, all the way to the parapet.
And what's behind it, rooms?
On this? Yeah, this is the rooms.
And then
Walls
what-
and the rooms. It's
But
it's the
above
solid
it
area.
at the top is behind it is parapet.
Right,
Got it.
yeah. So spandrel will move all the way to the top, and we have a coping, metal coping, which is the same as the mullion. Mullion size will run it all the way across.
And what was you have those aluminum projections, which are contemporary in itself. That's
Yes,
right.
those.
Yes. But then you're kind of overlapping them onto the stucco.
Right.
What was the thought process there? Because, they're not overlapping some sides. For example, that's right, this one overlaps onto the stucco,
Right.
whereas
Wherever-
in other portions, it's matching up with the lines of the building.
Well, this is, I believe this is all overlapping here. This is overlapping, that's overlapping here. Wherever it meets the stucco, because the reason for that is this is the outermost element that is framed out. So technically this, it starts from here. If you allow the stucco to overlap of that element, it would be like, you'd be reading like a half
Where is the
element.
edge of the window? Right inside here. That's right.
Over here.
Right. Where is
Yeah,
oh,
it's-
the inner edge of that aluminum?
Yeah, it's like 2 to 3 inches, away from that. About 2
So
inches.
in plan, basically, this is the aluminum that pops out, and your window's right there.
Correct, you see that, right here.
Actually, you could see it better on the rendering.
Yeah, rendering shows here, yeah, exactly. So those frames are coming out of the form.
Well, he needs at least about a foot to come out so he can wrap the paneling around.
That's right, yeah. I understand.
Frames usually have this one siding, so 3.
Yeah, this is the elevation that kind of depicts, this rendering kind of depicts the A, B, C motif and kind of the middle entrance and how it's roofed.
This will all be
You know, if it were lowered and what it would do to that facade. So that's a good angle to look at. Okay, and then do you have color samples for us for the windows itself?
Yeah, it's simply an aluminum, brushed aluminum.
It looks like in the renderings, though, it's kind of an aqua green texture to it.
Oh, you mean the glass?
Yes.
The glass is aqua green.
Okay.
I think we have a picture over here of the aluminum window itself, but the spandrel color would be this color here on the aqua green color. It's the spandrel color. Yeah, this is out of our project that we used in. This was a board.
Is that what's behind
That's
that?
the AC unit. The rooms are all ventilated with the remote control AC units, which is within the window itself. It's only 8 inches thick. So there are no mechanical equipments in the rooftop, if you have concern about it.
Every unit has its own package.
Yes.
You lead me to that question I wanted to ask you. How are you dealing with, you have a substantial garage size, how are you dealing with the ventilation? Where's
Well,
the ventilation?
We do have certain areas that we're going to be ventilating through the project, and it continuously carries out, and it's right to the staircase area. So
you're going to have natural ventilation? Or
no, mechanical
Mechanical,
ventilation.
yeah, so you have room, but that's mechanical unit is not going...
No,
it's not going on top
we'll be
of-
situated somewhere in the garage
Yeah,
to
okay.
ventilate that.
And as far as the building, the bookends are concerned, you've pulled the corridor windows in to be able to meet the fire code and create some undulation on that facade. Were there some other thoughts as well of how to introduce additional articulation on those end pieces?
Such as?
Materials, breaking up the stucco with score lines, having
Well,
rivets, having some sort of a material.
Naturally, this will have some score lines in it. I do not
You call it out on your schedule, but it's
Yeah.
not on the elevation.
Right, the black and white prints would show that, but it kind of washed out here. But we do have control joint, which is sort of corresponds with
Would you
with
be
the floor
opposed to those aluminum rivets on the bookends?
lines. No, absolutely, because they must be, otherwise the stucco will crack.
So you're not talking about regular scorpions, you're talking about some sort of aluminum.
Yeah, but they're
riveted.
not going to be too thick to me. It's going. We're looking at the quarter inch.
Yeah, the quarter inch.
Quarter inch would take care of it.
Can you introduce color in between this? Between the-
It's for this kind of architecture. I don't feel like making it too busy because all the playfulness happens within the facade. Those I would rather keep those forms as pure as possible, because to me those are two stretched boxes that come and have
Yeah,
the
but you
center.
still see it from the sides.
Yeah, for a time being, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you still
would
see it.
you have a building sitting right here,
Right there.
and then you have a building sitting up here. And
That's just a thought. I
in the
mean,
years to come, we may get a high rise, or you never know what the code will require, or another 50 feet covering all of this. So no point coloring it, or go ahead.
On the front elevation, you spoke about your planes, the 3 planes. Can you tell me, like, the dimension of these planes in relationship to the main facade?
Right. So I think we just spoke about that, but let me repeat that. So the first plane, which is, I call it the main plane, would be the cement plaster, the stucco facade, all the white color that you see, or you see in here. It came up a little bit, the yellowish thing. That would be this outer plane. So if we call that 0 plane. And then the second plane, which is step behind that, this would be 2 feet behind this. That would be wood paneling. I just say composite wood paneling. That would be right here. And a third plane would be spandrel glass, which is 4 feet beyond the outer zero plane, 4.5 feet, I'm sorry. It is same as the entry plane. Now, the fourth plane, which is protruding out, those would be about 1 foot projection out of the first plane, zero plane. So
Doesn't that encroach onto the setback, or is that okay with
I think the
awnings?
projections are okay.
So it's kind of like an projecting onto a setback.
When again, the entire building is set back,
Like 5 feet.
minimum 5 feet from the front property line in order to provide that 10-foot public right-of-way width. So the building itself is already set back, so those projecting aluminum frames that are essentially 1 foot off of zero
They're projecting
They're
1
within-
foot into that 5 foot.
into that 5-foot setback, so they're
That
still
he
4 feet away.
Voluntarily provided, yeah.
Oh, I see, okay. Mr. Judge, and then one last question that I have. I see the contemporary kind of frames that you're going after, and you've done it in other architectural designs as well. And then you have kind of this and this, and these metal components, more specifically this and somewhat these, are kind of stepping away from that kind of simple white stucco frame that creates the contemporary look that I know what you're talking about, what you've done in the past. And so what was the thought process of actually having those in there? Wouldn't the it just seems as though it totally takes it away from the frame that you're
Yeah.
creating, and it creates this busyness that kind of cheapens the design in a way where there's so much going on. What were the thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me say this. I mean, you're seeing this as a frame. I don't see it as a frame. I see it as a box. I see it as a like one unity box, which is a white box, cement plaster or white, and it's punched with the window openings. However, it does somehow frames out at the ends, but that element is playful by itself. So if you look at it in perspective or in a three-dimensional form, those elements, those are certainly are box forms that are coming together. To me, it's that kind of an impression, rather sculptural impression than just a frame in this case, in this design. Yeah, that was the explanation behind that. So for certainly, I didn't want this to be a line and that to be a line and have another line doing this. I'd rather have massing and then carve out elements out of that mass, out of that form, rather than have a linear frame and then implement those.
I understand the approach.
I think the perspectives would do the justice if you look at it. You can see that it's sort of, this is something that's carved out of those white forms.
I understand.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's every time you extend it or in every which direction, they'll totally change the facade.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so, in a way, this north elevation that has the windows kind of going across it,
Correct.
I see it achieving that result of what you're going after a little more than the front where it's actually top heavy.
Right.
And so I think with each one of these additions and subtractions of those cubes, it totally changes the language of the approach, I guess. And so it's a matter of preference and not so much right or wrong, because at the end of the day, it's ornamental.
I agree. Right. Yeah. It was the whole idea that you subtract those elements out of those forms, and then you apply materials with the various depths of it, to treat them differently. So the story behind this is just basically the playfulness by itself, and we are trying to not make it identical. So if you look at it, the old fragments are different from each other, so not to look boring, but yet they come together as one unity, one composition, or as an architectural form.
Any other questions for the architect?
Thank you.
I just actually have one. Actually, two. What is the treatment on the gate or area between the driveway and the pool? And my second question is going to be about the refuse area. What's the barrier? Is it wrought iron? Is it?
No. This area here, the swimming pool area, has a buffer of landscaping. Is about as William mentioned.
Between
This area here,
yes.
it would be glass.
Glass.
Yeah, glass paneling all the way through. Yeah, so
At the
to make
same
it
level?
at the same level as the pool level, from pool ground up would be a glass railing.
Hopefully with some
protecting.
bollards front of it.
No, actually, it's a right question.
Yeah.
This is raised comparingly with this because we starting here, you can
Well, I
see
asked them
4%, then 2%, then 4%. By the time you're here, you're already like 5 to 6 feet below the pool surface. So it gives you the visual protection, and you
So
see
it's
the
not on
edge of
grade.
it.
Yeah.
My question earlier that I thought you answered by saying was on grade.
A level was on grade, yeah, but the pool is higher than this. But this is all deck. It's in a concrete deck.
So you have some sort of a concrete wall with
Well, it will be
glass
plastered as
guardrail above it.
Well, it shows a section, the silhouette.
Yeah,
right
here.
there.
You can
It's
see
not
it.
right there, yeah.
Yeah.
He's saying the grade is higher, but I don't see how that's.
And then with a hotel this size with 134 rooms, the refuse area seems to be somewhat small and also located quite a ways away. in the
Yeah,
traffic flow.
we're kind of working on that with the public works right now. But I think the sizes and all of that, it's per requirement with the city. But a location, it could be relocated somewhere closer, for the pickup area.
Excuse me.
Bless you. But normally,
you.
the way it's done, the Jeep will arrive prior to the pickup, and they will basically bring the
Sure.
trash containers.
I'm thinking along the lines of twofold. One,
Yeah.
we're going to be using the guest elevators for
No,
trash.
definitely. We're not going to be, probably we're going to be relocating it as part of this. We do have a room.
Yeah, if you have room for maybe a chute, I don't know if you do. You might consider that as well.
Yeah, we looked at it, trash chute. Yeah, sometimes they don't work well
Yeah.
because you do have a staff of 10, 15 people working every day for, so those people will be carrying.
So this is very typical to our multifamily refuse system where the truck comes down, picks up,
Yes.
It's
the
an
trash
arrangement
bin,
made,
the large
yeah.
bin, takes it up on Colorado,
Correct.
sits there for a half a day, someone picks it up and brings it in.
Yeah, hopefully they put it within
So
the
you might
system.
want to think about an area where they would put it in, so
Yeah.
it's not just floating middle of the
They're
street.
going to put it in front of. They're going to put it in front of the lobby.
Those are
I
the
mean,
questions.
that's where. I mean, logically, if you look at where the entrance point is to the garage, and you look at where the cutout ends, are
You're talking about where the curb kind of goes in?
Yeah, because the curve from the street goes in here, so they can't put it here. This is what the. This is the entrance, so they're going to pop it right here, and that's the entry to the hotel.
And that's what I'm saying, is it might be
No,
good of us to think
there are
of where
other
they would
locations
drop
for
it off.
that,
There are other locations, but logically, dealing
such
with,
as
with
placing
trash
here,
pickup on a
if you-
weekly
yeah.
basis, they're going to put it at the most
Yeah.
convenient location for them.
But that could be arranged, and in such a manner that it will, obviously the manager wouldn't like to see. Arrange with a refuse company, so we do have also room to kind of tack under this area, but as I said, we're still working to
I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
identify the location.
I think it can change your parking.
Whatever they do, they got to pull it out into the street because that's where the big truck picks it up from.
Correct.
And so, the question is going to be, do you have a designated cutout of the
Yeah.
curb in that area where it kind of goes in?
Right.
It will come from the driveway, and there's no.
Yeah, it's going to come out from the driveway anyway.
There's no-
But again, this is not a restaurant project that you have that much of a refuse going out. It's a hotel. We do understand that, and the maintenance is upkeep by the staff or the personnel of the. So,
Yeah, I'm just going to, my comment's going to be that you really revisit the refuse plan with the city, because I think it can alter design after the fact, after we reviewed it, because I do not agree with the statement that this isn't going to generate a lot of refuse. These are the types of places where business people might spend weeks, 2 weeks. I personally have spent 3 months in a place like this. And you do generate a fair amount of refuse, especially if you're eating out a lot and so forth. So there's a lot of actual refuse. So I like the plan overall. The one thing that just stuck out at me was the fact that this entire 134-unit facility is basically using one dumpster, one recycle, one dumpster. And so that's...
If that's the size requirement,
Well,
you know,
they'll
whatever.
increase they're increasing the service portion of it on like twice a week.
You could go every day. You could go every day,
so-
you just pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's another alternative.
There's other alternatives.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. Well, do we have any other questions for the architect?
I'm sorry?
Any other questions for the architect?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Khan.
Good evening, Chairman and board members and city staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are on Brand Boulevard here in the city of Glendale. It's been a little while since I've been in front of this board, so it's nice to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very
is
much.
that a good thing?
Sometimes it is. It matters how it goes. There's really not been a lot of investment in this area of the city on East Colorado, and there's been not a lot of new construction. So I think the hotel use itself, from a vitality perspective, is really hopefully going to act as a catalyst, because up and down East Colorado, there certainly could be improvements to the buildings. There certainly could be more investment, which could be encouraged. Hopefully this is the first of many. The second thing I wanted to point out is when we started designing this project, it was really trying to figure out how you can be sensitive to the properties to the north, because although they are multifamily, they're still residential. And one of the things that I thought was highlighted and that we really emphasized was pulling that building away from that. And it actually is, as was pointed out, is double the setback than's typically required. But we also looked at what type of the landscaping we would be putting back there in terms of the trees, and just overall trying to be a decent neighbor. We don't have balconies on the back. We don't have exterior corridors, anything like that. So I just thought that point didn't get emphasized here, but we did emphasize it during our variance hearing, and that seemed to be very well received. I don't have a lot more to add. Obviously, I'd strongly encourage you to approve this project and approve this design. I think the architect did a very nice job. So I'll conclude on that, and thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ms. Rosa Villaria.
Yeah.
Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Rose Vialta, and I live on 103 Orange Grove Avenue. So I'm directly behind the building. But as a resident of Glendale for my entire life, I just wanted to speak my mind and say that the building itself, the gym itself, provides a service to the actual community, to the members, to the residents of Glendale, not people who are visiting. It's detrimental for everyone within our community, a place that is affordable for our well-being. It provides the students of Glendale High and Hoover and the senior citizens a place for them to be able to go and affordably be able to have a place to work out, to better their lives. And basically, everyone I've always spoken to, Glendale has always been seen as a small community, a small city. And even though it's so beautiful and the building is beautiful and we have a bustling downtown, everyone loves it, but they always love the small city feel. And so the fact that Brand is our little city and then we have our little suburb next to it, it's kind of sad to see it go.
Thank you for taking the time to come out and speak. Mr. Alajajian, well, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? I don't have any other cards, but you could certainly speak and then submit a card afterwards. Mr. Alajajian, as far as a rebuttal, there isn't much that was said. However,
2 minutes.
You were entitled to several minutes to finish up some thoughts that you might have forgotten in the first place.
Well, actually, I believe the architectural we're here just to review the architecture and the design. The lady that spoke before me, the concerns about the gym staying there, I think we have spoken about that in the public hearing that came up months ago in February. I don't want to address those because it was all issues been addressed before. So we do know that the gym is a good thing, but there are many other gyms around the town. So rightfully, this property deserves to have, and Glendale deserves to have a first-class hotel like Intercontinental Group coming in and bringing their membership to City of Glendale, where it's very much desired location for them too, as the city grows. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to close the public portion of the meeting. Mr. Benyon, you want to start us off this evening?
Sure. So when I first looked at this project, I wanted to commend the staff and the architect for taking the time and the effort to basically break up the mass, because I've dealt and I worked on buildings that are 300-400 feet long, and it's not always easy to break up the mass and deal with the spaces behind it of the functionality at the same time. So sometimes some stuff you have to give in to accomplish that. But you guys, did a good job working on that, and the use of different materials, the undulation, pushing in the surfaces, the 3 different surfaces, and...
Sorry, there you go.
Initially, I had an issue, and I think other board members had an issue with having the roof line running straight for the 300 feet, and I felt that if some kind of if this was dropped a little or something had to happen here to basically highlight these 2 boxes that the architect spoke about. But after you presented and after you explained your thought and how you wanted this whole thing to be like the horizontal, and you're trying to look at it more not as a square or a rectangle, more as a box, you kind of sold me, and I kind of see it now when I'm looking at the 3-dimensional drawing. The only thing that I'm having an issue with, if you look at these, if you look at this building here and you look at this building here, they're both done well, and you can see that the white surface and the glass and everything does the job, does exactly what you want. The only issues I see is this rectangular pieces, the aluminum pieces, they kind of feel that they're not part of that box. So you have this box that everything, all the other elements kind of fall in the box. They feel like they're part of the design. These feel like they're an afterthought. They feel like ornamental. They're not doing anything. And I'll give you an example of what I'm saying. For example, this one here, you see this frame, and then you see the space behind it, or this one here. You have the same exact windows and same exact rooms that are happening here. But for example, if this was your gym or your fitness center, and then I'm looking here and I see a piece of glazing, whole glazing area, all of a sudden this thing is highlighting something, highlighting a function, and it's becoming part of the overall. Right now it feels like, okay, this is my windows, these are my rooms, okay, let me put some piece of frame here, and it's not doing anything else. That's just my feel. But overall the design is nice. Everything else works well. I'm not sure if the 1 column is doing the job of balancing the thing. I think it looks awkward, but that's my personal taste. I'll leave it to the other guys to talk about that. But that's about it. I think it's a good design overall, and I'm in support.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mardian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with some of the comments Mr. Bellion said, but I like the cohesiveness of the design. I actually disagree with you about these frames. These, I want to call them pictures frame, they have cohesiveness in the location. Although they're randomly located, they create this modern interpretation of this building, which further defines it. And I have no issues with the locations of it. It gives you a little more play. The only criticism that I have, and I don't want to take your creative juices away, I do agree with you, Mr. Bowman, is the column. That column seems at odd with the building. I know it's you're trying to, but have you thought of putting another column on the other side?
Yes, and it didn't work.
It didn't work? Because I thought maybe, or totally eliminate it. Because it seems at odd with the building. And I don't mean to take, I know you're creating something different, but I feel it's, you have the symmetry, some symmetry going on, but yet they're not exactly symmetrical. I kind of have, and I'll wait and see what my other colleague says. And again, I go back to my other earlier comment, and maybe Mr. Simone alluded to it. Maybe that middle portion on the top needs to be dropped down, on the entry, and create something in the background. But I'm willing to listen further what my colleagues have to say on that. Other than that, I like the choice of the material, the quality of material. I know your constraints on the height, and I like the design, and I'm in support of it, with the exceptions of these two items. So I don't know if the board feels different about it, then so be it.
And just to clarify,
Yes, Mr. Rennie.
I'm not against these frames. I think you're absolutely right. I like the placement. I like what they're doing. The only thing I don't like is they're just a frame, and what's happening behind them is
You're talking more about form and following function.
something like that. Or maybe you don't change the form, but you change so it gets like different kind of glazing. It gets something that identifies that hole as a box, not only as a frame.
What do you suggest? Any suggestions?
Different, like maybe like bigger, like storefront glass, maybe, or
Maybe not have the wood in that section.
maybe not have the wood in that section. Something. I think there are multiple things you can do. But that's about it. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Mardian, and Mr. Billion, Mr. Charchian.
So I'm going to join in some of those comments. I have already mentioned my concern about the refuse plan and the way that it works with the traffic flow. I think it's going to be an issue. I'm actually very, very familiar with this street and the way that refuse works on this street. So I encourage you highly to deal with it proactively, because you will notice the neighbors will have their individual containers up and down the street for a day and a half. And if I was going to choose to stay at a particular hotel, especially as a business traveler, which I have been in the past, if I came home after a long day's worth of work to this particular hotel and saw trash out there on a regular basis, that would be a big discouragement. It would be a big disservice to the owner, and I think it would be an issue for your hotel group. So that I want to revisit that issue. The areas that I have additional concern with are back here. And I didn't mention it earlier because I'm just going to make a suggestion. I don't think it's going to be a thing. I think that this entry area, it looks like there's two, one entrance, one exit in this area, could be reworked with maybe some sort of open area, maybe some sort of open folding glass concept that you can utilize for that lifestyle lounge that you have. Because right now, you have a great entrance from the front of the property, very monumental in a way. And then you have a one that is meant to be monumental from the back, which is where 90% of your traffic is going to come from. People aren't going to park on Colorado, I don't think, to check in. They're going to go to the back. And that entranceway goes through an elevator corridor. And then you have this lounge area that could very easily open up to that space and create an open space between the lounge that you're creating and the outside space. Even if it's not used very often, I think it's a feature that can be utilized for specific events or for breakfast service or whatever the hotel's going to offer. And then I would have commented on the mass on the east and the west elevations, but that was addressed with the non-placed but designed elements for the joints. That would be my only concerns. Otherwise, I think it's a great addition for the neighborhood, and I support the project overall.
Thank you, Mr. Charchin. I'll start off by saying I support the project as well. It's well done. This is a part of our city that could use the economic development that's going in there. It's a part of the city that doesn't get a lot of new capital infusion, and it's certainly, I think, the direction that the city wants to create some excitement on that part of Colorado, and so that fits in. And also, it's providing a hotel in that area, which there are none. There's a lot of motels and those kind of things, but nothing of higher quality. And so it's certainly a use that I think is needed. Insofar as the architecture is concerned, I think anytime you have a hotel, especially more of a brand name hotel, you're dealing with corporate layouts, you're dealing with corporate dimensions, corporate colors, corporate logos, signage, etc. The list goes on. And so it is not an easy design problem to fix as an architect, because you have your room dimensions, which are somewhat vanilla. They're stacked one on top of another, and then now you're trying to create some excitement over 300 linear feet of frontage, and it's not an easy exercise. And so all in all, I think you've done a very good job of creating that excitement and making it have identity and make it more of a unique piece of architecture. And so in that, I think we're all pleased with the overall direction, quality, etc. The material board as presented also depicts a higher-end material, and so that, and I think coupled with the undulations that are created in the facade, kind of take away from that 300 linear feet of facade. Some of the comments that are being made that my board members are making, I think really stems from the fact that we are taking this kind of vanilla layout, let's say, such as the rooms that are next to one another, and trying to make something out of it. And so anytime you start adding, trying to add interest to a facade, when you have 3 or 4 architects looking at it, they're going to have different interpretations as to what is appropriate, because at the end of the day, it's more ornamental as opposed to form following function. And so there's really no right answer, which is what I was referring to, just perceptions as to what it should look like. And so I'd like to just premise my thoughts with that, in that you have a column that's placed that some board members have an issue with, but then you probably think it's the best thing ever, and you're probably proud of it, because once they made the comment, I could tell you weren't too happy about that column going away. And so, but what I do think are...
nerve there.
Yeah, you were, as you guys were speaking, I just happened to be watching the architects, and I noticed that. And so, but what I do think are some thoughts that I'd like to echo as well, in that you might want to think about it, because then you have the same recurring theme being said by several people, and it's something interesting to look at. I personally also agree in that in this middle part, it certainly makes sense to create some variety in the roof. You yourself said you like to continue the window line header, which you could do, and in reality, this entire top portion, which consists of some sort of storefront system of some sort, whatever it is, I think it really would emphasize your A-B approach that you're wanting to do with your building and your frames, it would really help it. But it might require you actually making that adjustment in a 3D format to look at it to see what your thoughts are on that. Because the fact that it steps back, it already is starting to do that. And anytime something steps back like that, especially when it's so different, such as glass, it just makes sense to treat it a little differently.
Just on that point, since it sounds like there's consensus on that, is this going to be a condition or a consideration?
Well, I think we'll get to that in a minute, but what I want to do is just holistically say some thoughts, which others have as well, and then I think we're going to circle around on some of these to see which way we want to go with them. But that's something where I think would really help the project, really no matter which way we're looking at this. The other is the column that you're referring to. And again, some of these comments that we're making, I don't think are big. They're not going to make big differences in your construction schedule or in changes. So, but they're just, and I think you realize that as well. You have this column, and then you have this sign here, right, which is going to be the sign or whatnot. You could do something creative where instead of hanging this sign like you're doing, you kind of cantilever it off this column, and it could even overextend itself a little bit past the column. Yeah, and it's so that column then all of a sudden has this other piece that's protruding out from it that becomes a signage. So, you know, those are some ways where you could start.
In fact, the column is supporting the
There you go. And but in a way, the elevation isn't depicting that, but you're already thinking down that.
exactly.
It's on the rendering.
But
3D picture, look at the 3D, it will show you. Maybe I should put this over there, that's a little larger. But you try to put your finger over the column, see how the elevation is going to look. I think this creates a major support for all these assemblies coming together. Take that, then this becomes a toy. So this supports that and supports the main itself. So, and adding it over here, it would be like something that doesn't work.
And
Sorry.
you could leave that there actually, yeah, and everybody could look at it. And so that was my personal opinion on the fact is I like the column there. However, I think it really could start working in, and I'm trying to create some compromise between the board members of how that column could start having some function in itself. Just a thought as to how that could be dealt with. The other comment was Mr. Bolling's comment, and so far as the aluminum projections are concerned, I myself had similar comments in that, you know, it's really overlapping onto the stucco portion, which in itself is taking away from the purity of what we're trying to achieve. And so you put it on the inside, those windows get smaller, which I could understand isn't going to work. And so then do you go with a different kind of a material inside to really emphasize, you know, what is being framed inside? I don't know the answer to that. It's hard to say without looking at some examples. But I do think that there is something there, because when I look at this and I look at the wood area, and then I see the frame itself and the wood is behind it, it really emphasized that kind of ornamentality of it, that it's just this glued on thing. Whereas if something different is happening behind it, which could easily happen, could definitely happen, even with the same spacing that you got, but just a different material, might really lend itself. Maybe it turns into more of a corrugated metal behind it.
What if the spandrel were the same material as the frame of the box? The window surrounding walls? So there would be a fully aluminum piece. I'm a little afraid of adding another material to this building.
Already busy,
yeah.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about that. Maybe that it really becomes this wrapped metal or some sort of a metal siding that is the same color as the aluminum itself, which could easily be accomplished. Yes, Mr. Ali George. But you must, I think, speak into the microphone because we
Right.
can't have a lot of cross communication.
I can see the point for that. Just explanation for that. Where the boxes occur, basically right at the depth of the boxes, it meets the surface which the material belongs to. And these two cases, on the left and right, the square ones, the meet sections, they meet the wooden frame. And the upper one, it meets the spandrel glass. So the behind that point is a spandrel. It's not wooden. So they're different. But I do agree with Mr. Platt's comment. I think we could exercise having the metal paneling same as the composite metal we're using for a frame. It could give some sort of an identity to it. Yeah. We could try that, and I think that's a very valid comment. So, and we can see, with a design studio if that's something that would work.
And it's easy enough of a modification that could be done.
Yeah, if it works, then it has to apply everywhere the boxes occur, as well as the entry form that we are introducing more of a rectangular, not the square. There's a rectangular form that supports the column, the one that the column supports.
And I assume that the column cladding is going to be the same material as that aluminum.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is.
And
I mentioned
almost
that.
the sign as well. So all that could really become.
That probably will work much softer and would have its identity as an element. Yeah.
And so your building layout isn't changing. The walls aren't changing.
No, I
it's just
understand.
Just a material change.
Yeah. But the lowering parapet, it needs some thinking, because I do not agree with that, because, if you lower the parapet, there's not much of a room over there. If you start lowering that, already the forms itself are coming out of that spandrel surface, which gives you that third dimension. So the lowering that, just going to, to me, it's not going to be as...
How about just stucco there?
Stucco, that...
The band, yeah, just right at the top, that one where you have the mullion there.
You think it will look better?
I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah. No,
I think lowering it looks better.
I think lowering it is...
Not to agree with that.
I'm hoping that when you do that study, you'll go, aha, it does look better, but
If I can
at the moment you don't believe that.
Believe me, we went back and forth with the staff many times. We had many
Not the
iterations.
stucco, they're talking about lowering it.
Lowering, yeah.
No, I understand.
We can't have cross communication.
If I can recommend, if we're going to ask for a study of that, it might be better to have returns so that the form of these two boxes on either side looks like it extends back over the roof.
It is already there. So
Okay.
it only takes the surface to apply it with the metal clad.
Mm-hmm.
And you're done, basically. And I do agree with that. I think it will add into
I'm talking about the parapet
concept.
area. The lower,
Oh, no.
if the parapet is lowered, then the white frame, the box element would need to have returns extending to the north
To keep the box.
to keep the volume of the boxes visible.
Yeah.
But it already does. Well, yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah, it would be just a few feet probably.
That's right. That's right. Because in itself, when we're looking, where's the roof plan here? There it is. And so, we're really talking about this area over here,
Yeah.
right? That would have a lower parapet than the rest. And so, you could have some sort of a metal guardrail back here that still protects your 42-inch. And so all you're doing is just lowering this, and as Mr. Platt is saying, this stucco would carry itself back with the wings. Okay.
Excuse me, Art. I don't think that was the design intention here. I think I don't want to break the building into three buildings here.
Okay.
So connecting the parapet in the same level and a continuous variety of the material that is pulled out, minuses, subtractions from the forms is the vocabulary here. If I start playing with the ups and downs, that is a totally different opera here. It's a totally different game. So to me, I think for my design as an architect, it's essential to keep that as a level, And I'd appreciate if you recognize me as the architect of the project.
Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and close the public portion again. Do we have any other comments or conditions, comments at this point from the board members?
No.
Okay. And so let me make a suggestion, Mr. Platt. I think that now's a good time to kind of go over what you have already. And I have a feeling we could quickly summarize them as to what are conditions and what are comments or what are study items, if any.
Sure. I'll just go in order as we've discussed things. We're going to make sure that the drawings indicate that there are reglets on the side facades that are already proposed, just to make sure they're visible to break up those facades.
And if I may add the column on the plan, the column is not shown on the plan.
Okay, we will add.
The main column, the sensitive column that we have.
Okay, we will have a condition to revise the plan to include the location of the column.
And some of those stucco pieces coming down.
And based on some of the other comments, we'll look for a detail of that area so that we understand how the column and the canopy interface and see what that's going to look like. We're going to ask the applicant to speak with integrated waste to make sure that the trash area is of appropriate size and the pickup schedule won't create a public nuisance. We have 2 staff conditions. I think you'll agree with providing details of the interface of different cladding materials, also providing a lighting plan for the building, which we don't have yet. With regard to the 4 aluminum boxes on the front facade, and we'll do the same thing with the 1 or 2 on the rear facade. Incorporate the same material for the wall cladding that is used for the actual box. With regard to the column, I think there was general consensus that the column's okay, but it needs to somehow integrate with the canopy in a way that's a little more meaningful or understandable than what's on the drawings.
That's right. The thought was to have it the same material.
Which I think it is.
And have maybe a study of how the signage, or better details of how the signage is integrated into the column.
And if there is signage on the column?
No, next to the.
It's actually a canopy over the door. I don't know that there's any signage. There might be an address somewhere.
Okay,
maybe.
there's no signage on the canopy.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so that canopy and how it integrates.
Yeah, we'll try to understand the relationship between the two, but that the single column is acceptable to the board, I believe.
What I wanted to do is come back to that, but yes, go on. Yeah,
for now.
Because at the moment it's there. Yes.
Okay. And this is, I'm not sure if this will be a condition or a consideration ultimately based on the discussion you just had with the architect, but it seems the board is interested in dropping the height of the parapet above the entry area. I assume that would correspond to the area on the rear. If that's done, then the stucco walls will return to create the volumetric relationship. Column boxes. And that's everything that I've got.
Okay. So let's address the 2 items, the column and the entry window height at the top. Starting off with the column. Personally, when I look at the design, the single column doesn't seem out of place, especially when it's in the same material as the box above it, with the canopy integrated into it. However, what are your thoughts as well on that?
I'm willing to keep the column as single column. I think the applicant has convinced me.
Okay.
Same here.
Okay.
I agree as well.
Wonderful.
Single column.
Single column. And so now the last item is there was a lot of discussions about the spandrel area above the entry. And the question is whether the board wants that portion to be lowered, in which case it's a condition which the architect opposes, or if the board likes to have it studied, perhaps just a study as far as a rendering of what it would look like lowered, which is the top right rendering maybe would depict it best, or leave it as is and just keep it at consideration. What are the thoughts on that?
I would want to ask the architect a question on the room height requirement by the chain, because I think that would dictate whether or not
It wouldn't really affect it. We're
It's
talking about just the parapet.
It's above the roof line, the area that we would be dropping.
So you're talking just the parapet distance?
It looks like it would be just the top row of glass.
Yeah, there's 3 foot.
It's 3 feet.
It could come down,
Yeah.
let's say, 2 feet from that portion. So it wouldn't affect the roof height.
Okay. So if it doesn't affect the room configuration and it's a parapet issue, then I'm neutral on it.
Okay. And others?
I'm fine with it the way it is. I think he convinced me about the idea of the importance of the horizontality of this, of the whole idea. I mean, once you drop it, all of a sudden you're creating two buildings.
The ABC approach, yeah.
I'm starting to see that, which he doesn't want.
Mr. Mardian?
I'm going to concur with my colleagues. I'll let go on that one, but I'd like to make it as a consideration to study it.
Sure.
Just to kind of satisfy our comment or staff or yourself, maybe. Just do that study. It's not really a deal breaker. With that, I'm satisfied.
Wonderful. Very good. Then it seems as though, and I concur with the comments made. So, Mr. Platt, it seems as though we have all the conditions. We are not going to make it a condition to lowering the roof height over the entry, but it's going to be just a consideration to study it. And so with that, I believe we've gone through all the items.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did skip one of the comments from Board Member Charchian about the openable glass wall at the lounge area
That was
facing
just a recommendation.
But if we get consensus, we'll include it. If not, we'll...
I like that idea, actually, opening up the back further, you know.
They can consider it as part of the other consideration.
There is some room here. In other words, here's your driveway. You have this area that can lend itself to something happening, where if someone's staying there long term, they'll have some area to sit outside or whatnot. So that's more of a consideration to study that component. It's a consideration, so...
For you to study it.
For you to study it.
Just study and do whatever you want with.
Okay.
Yep, that's everything, so...
All right. Now, before you make your final decision, we do ask that you acknowledge the mitigated negative declaration that was included as part of your staff report. And
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the negative declaration.
I'll second.
And that's all in favor.
Aye.
All right. And so I believe that there is, I'm sorry, is there a motion to approve with conditions?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Mr. Board Member Benlian made the motion, a second by Board Member Mardian. So in terms of a roll call, Board Member Charchian?
Yes.
Board Member Benlian?
Yes.
Board Member Mardian?
Yes.
And Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 4-0 to approve with conditions. There are no minutes to be considered this evening. I just want to make sure, Urban Design Studio staff, no last-minute staff announcements?
Oh, no.
No last-minute staff announcements.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Good night.